Welcome back to another episode of Harmonious at Lunch, the show that fuels your business success. I'm Brandon Gano, your host and guide through the world of harmonious business growth. Today, we're unlocking powerful strategies with industry experts to help your business thrive. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or executive, you are in the right place. Join me and our incredible guests today on the journey to clarity, growth, and success. It is time to revolutionize your approach to business. Let's dive in with another episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Welcome back into some more bite-sized business advice. In today's episode, we're talking about, I'm a little bit biased, but my favorite topic, and that's building businesses. But we're also going to talk about building people that build businesses with a very special guest, Scott Beebe. Welcome to the show, and thank you for being here.
Thanks, Brandon. Super excited about this. I like to geek out on this stuff with people who love it.
I do love it. I'm biased because I actually used to do this work. My company was recently acquired, so we're no longer doing the external consulting, but I still do this work inside of our company every single day. So I have a soft spot for it, but I want to hear your perspective. So you 4 systems that every business owner needs to build the right people that build the right business. Kind of a mouthful, at least for me. But what do you mean when you talk about this topic?
So there's an element that we're seeing. We primarily work with business owners between 5 and 100 employees. So that gives you a little context on the space that we're working in and to understand the unique challenges that follow and sort of hover around those business owners that deal with it. And a lot of what they're dealing with is realizing that their business is really running their life, so much to the point that the life that they want to have, they're not able to have many times. Because the business is sort of owning them rather than them owning the business. And so when we start to sit and step back from the business for a minute and go, hey, is this allowing you to do what you want to do, both professionally and personally? And typically the answer is no, not always. There's some that are like, no, we're in great shape. And we're like, that's awesome. You are in far the minority to be able to do it. But the ones who are willing to be honest with us and say, hey, no, this is really robbing me of my time with my spouse, my kids, whoever, what I want to do outside of work. And we've got this phrase, it says life and business necessarily intersect. And if we want to create a business that then creates the life that we want, our vision story actually starts with family and freedom and not with the business finances, because the finances are kind of nothing if you don't have a vision for what you're going to do with your family and your freedom with that. So we actually start our business vision with the family. And that doesn't mean you've got to be married or have kids. You could be in whatever stage of life you are as an adult, but understand that your life and your business need to complement. They need to work together. And we found that a lot of that, once we can categorize it in those 4 systems that we talked about, within the 4 pain points that we talk about all the time, that's when we can start to see some clarity and go, okay, how do I build process around that to create what we call the RPMs of great leadership? Repetition, predictability, and meaning. And so once we start getting in that flow of the RPMs within those systems and the pain points, now the clarity starts to flow.
I love that. And it makes complete sense, right? Like, how are you going to get somewhere if you don't know where you're going? Which is Alice in Wonderland, I think, probably the most famously said that, right? But people don't come to you because they want a better life's purpose or business vision. I'm quite certain. How do you get them to see that truly is the first step and then actually go down that path? Because I mean, I know from experience, it's hard to do those things, to actually create a vision and pull out the purpose from why you started your business can be challenging for some people. So how do you get them there first and foremost?
Yeah, well, we're business coaches. We're not family counselors. We're not even pastors. Actually, a fair amount of our team comes from a ministry background, so they have that in their tool belt. But that's not what we lead with. That's not who we are at sort of the front of the line of what we're trying to get into. At the end of the day, we're business coaches, and what we're engaging in with people is when we get together and go, "Hey, tell us about your business." Like, that's what we want to hear about. We will earn the relationship down the road to talk about all the other things that you love that are behind the curtain. You mentioned Alice in Wonderland. So let's talk about the Wizard of Oz, I guess, now. And so behind the curtain, we will get there, but we have to earn that as coaches. We're not given that. You should not give us that. What you should give us is what's on the surface at first. Allow us to be able to diagnose and to understand so that we can begin to maneuver slowly behind the curtain and deal with those things that are closely held secrets. But once we uncover those secrets, now the light can come in. We're huge believers in throwing light onto things that are dark And usually the back end of the business is pretty dark to most people. They don't want to share it because, frankly, sometimes they're embarrassed, or it may just not be going as well as they like. So what we do is we have these conversations to go, hey, tell us about this. How many employees? What are you dealing with? What's the biggest headache? And then down the road, days, weeks, months, we get to throw light into a dark space to where they trust us and go, I'm with you. You clearly know what you're doing. Now I'm going to follow you down this path.
Yeah, you got to get those small wins, right? To earn the trust. You can't go in and say, you're an idiot, you're doing all of this wrong, and you need to start from scratch. Not a good way to talk to people. Okay, so once you get inside the walls, you start to uncover this stuff, you throw the light, as you said. What are the 4 systems that you're talking about here?
Yeah. So every business has 4 systems. Actually, we need to think through a business as a constructed organism, a constructed entity. It's not just a blob that's out there. And so we work with a ton of construction companies. So we tend to lump these into construction metaphors. And so within that, there are really 3 major layers of which the 4 systems sit on top of. So the first layer, what we call the 5 foundational cornerstones of every business: vision, story, mission statement, unique core values, a hiring process, and then repetitive, predictable, and meaningful team meetings, and what we call the big 5 feedback loop. So every business needs to have team meetings, one-on-one check-ins, production meetings or departmental meetings, an executive meeting, and an annual performance review. If you don't have that, then don't be shocked when information starts to leak out of the business. So you got those foundational cornerstones that every business must have. I don't want to sprint right past that because actually most businesses don't have that. Now, some people listening might go, no, we have that. And my response would be, is it written down? Oh, no, it's not written down. It's in my head. Well, Michael Gerber said it in E-Myth. He said, if it's not written down, you don't own it. We're a little harsher, and we say if it's not written down, it doesn't exist. And so these things must be documented. They must be captured and shared on a regular basis. And then laying on top of that is what we call the concrete slab of process. It's all those little things. It's the new client startup process, the annual billing process, the office cleanliness process, whatever that might be. And then on top of that, so you've got your foundation, you've got your concrete slab sitting on top of that 5 foundational cornerstones. And then you've got the 4 walls of every business. Every single business has this. And in this order: marketing, that tells the world that we're here. Hey, we're here. Kind of what you and I are doing right now on a podcast. People are learning about us on this podcast. Then there's sales. That's where we've dated in the marketing world, and now we're going to walk down the aisle. We're going to go get married in down the aisle of sales. And once we've joined in that union of sales, then we move into operations. That's the product, the service. That's where we're actually fulfilling the vow that we made at the altar of sales. And then after that, it's what we call administration. It includes accounting and HR and all that stuff. That's changing the diapers, changing the light bulbs, mowing the grass, maintaining the house for 10, 20, 40, 60 years, right? That we live there in this relationship with a client. Some relationships are really short, an hour. Others are really long, 10 years, right? But the reality is they all exist within those 4 major systems. Every business, whether you're selling ice cream, podcast services, you're selling hotel services, haberdashery, selling suits or haircuts, it doesn't matter. Every business has those 4 major systems.
Where's the roof? What is the roof of this structure? You open the story loop, Scott. I have to know what the roof is.
So I'll continue down the metaphor. So the external shell of this structure, and really it's the pain point, because what's the ultimate pain of a house? It's usually when there's a leak in the roof. And so if we've got leaks in the roof, then it affects everything else underneath. So the leaks of the roof are the 4 major pain points that we deal with, revolve around these things. Now, I've got a background as a pastor, so I have to put things in alliteration. I apologize for those of you with religious backgrounds and you're tired of this, but the 4 Ps really do make sense around this, and the 4 pain points, and also the 4 elements that we walk through to get to those 4 systems. And they are this: purpose. It's everything around the purpose element of your life. And you mentioned earlier, how do you get there? We rarely start with purpose, because not many people go, I don't have a purpose in my life. They're usually at their wits' end before they say that. Well, that's typically not where we're meeting people. But once we've got them in that systems thinking, then we can come back and go, okay, purpose. That's a written vision, a written mission statement. By the way, the vision story is about 5-6 pages long. It's not a paragraph. It's not a sentence. It's multiple pages of detailed description of the snapshot of what the business looks like in the future. A mission statement is a 10-word, power-packed boom statement to go, this is why we do what we do. And a set of unique core values should not be any longer than 3 to 5 unique core values. And they're not integrity, respect, responsibility. I mean, come on, we should all be sharing those. They're things that really you won't understand. One of our core values is the 4 R's. We have another core value, 85-15. Now, you don't understand what those are. They require description. So that's the purpose element. Then you've got people, org charts, job roles, hiring process, onboarding process. All that must be documented. Then you've got process. That goes in marketing, sales, ops, and admin. And you get all those processes documented. And then the final pain point that we meet a lot of people in is profit. They're generating a lot of revenue up top, but they're not able to keep a lot of it down at the bottom. And so that's your roof structure of which those 4 walls can help support.
Which is awesome because it's the culmination of the layers down below, which makes complete sense. So I like what you did there. So when you're meeting people, you're analyzing the 4 pain points. What are some commonalities you find when you're first meeting, whether it's clients or potential clients? What are some things that the listeners may resonate with because they may have them in their business?
Yeah, that's a really healthy question. I think the number one response we get from people, because we'll just ask simply, what's the biggest challenge you're dealing with right now? And I think there's 2, but the number 1 is around people and number 2 is around money. Now, depending on the season, number 1 might be money and number 2 is people. But typically they fall in this order of people and money. And with the people, it usually sounds like this. Hey, Brandon, nobody wants to work anymore. And so that's what they'll tell us. Nobody wants to work anymore. So we'll simply ask very kindly, yeah, is it that nobody wants to work anymore or they just don't want to work for you because you're chaotic and in constant chaos? And then the second element usually has something, if they've trusted us, they'll get to talking about money, profit, and typically in cash flow is really what they mean by the time they get to it. Cash management, cash flow. And so we actually submit to the subdivided bank account process. You can read in Profit First. And we have everybody subdividing their bank accounts, not on spreadsheets, but in actual bank accounts. And that's part of that profit process that we help them walk through, is to be able to walk through and subdivide that so they can understand. And we have still to this day, we've been following that subdivision methodology for about 7 years now. Still to this day, we have not had one client, not one. And currently today we have a team of 12 and we serve about, I think, 107 clients today around the country. We have never had one, not one, come back and tell us that they wish they wouldn't have subdivided their bank accounts.
I believe that.
Yeah.
I think it's also, it's right there behind my head. I'm a huge believer in Profit First.
Yeah.
I've had the same encounter. We do very similar work with our clients, and business owners don't understand where the money goes because they just can't see it. And it's not their fault. It's our fault as human nature. That's the whole point of the book. But then once you see it, it shines a light on, oh, okay, the problem's actually somewhere else in my business, but now I can see it. I can understand it. What does that journey look like, and how quickly do people usually get there with you from the chaos of wherever they're at to starting to get the order in their business and then really getting that passion and purpose back? Yeah.
So what we've learned over time, we've got a 3-year coaching roadmap that we walk our clients through that follows this methodology of base camp, first mountain, and second mountain. I won't go into all the details of that, but typically in that base camp phase, it's usually about a year and a half, because that's where we're installing all of the tools for a business owner to be able to climb these mountains that we're going to take them on. And part of the tools, we've got about 32 documented and templated tools that we walk them through to be able to stock them in those 4 major categories: purpose, people, process, and profit. And as we do that, we really start to see the fog clear within just a couple of months, because there's so much that's muddy. It doesn't take much to kind of clear off the windshield to some degree. But then the car is not functioning well. So we can see out the front window relatively clearly. But instead of the car running attuned at 78 miles an hour, we actually have to slow it down just a little bit so that we can work on it while it's still moving, but we can work on it and begin to tweak those things in. So I would say usually in the area of about 6 to 7 months is where we'll start getting feedback going, oh my gosh, I had no idea what I didn't know. And by a year and a half, by the time if they've done what we've asked them to do, we have 2 rules in our business for our clients. Number 1, you have to do everything we ask you to do. It's rule number 1. And rule number 2 is you have to have more money coming in than's going out. If you're generating 100 grand worth of revenue a year, we can't help you do that. So you got to have more money coming in than's going out. But typically by that time, they're screaming at year one in 1.5, going, all right, I'm ready.
I love it. Did you say screaming because you just heard the zoo animals behind me scream at the same time? I apologize for you listeners if you heard that too, but Scott, I love this. We've only scratched the surface in this episode, but I want to end it with something that, you mentioned alliteration. No sermon would be complete without alliteration. And the second thing is a powerful question that gets the audience to think about why they came here. Why did you come to church this morning? So I want you to ask the listeners that question. And it's, what is a question that you wish more people would ask before they started on this journey that would set them up for success, maybe sooner along that roadmap, or maybe bigger success when they get down the road? What is that powerful question?
So this one is really, really easy for me. It is actually the first question we ask when we're on a sales call with a potential client. And we ask it for a reason. And so here's the question. What do you want? And that's the simplicity of the question. It's not what did your mom want for you when you were 12. It's not what does your spouse want, although those probably need to align at some point. Not what do your friends expect you to have. What do you want? And once you can sit down sort of in the clarity of that moment and genuinely answer that question, now we can get started. But until you've got the courage to be able to answer that question in a way that's meaningful to you, then it's going to be really hard to get started.
It's also it's not what do you not want? It has to be, because I've noticed people are really good at telling you what they don't want, but it's very complicated to get them to tell you what they actually do want.
That's right.
I love this. Scott, where can the listener reach out, learn more about you, and help you grow their business?
Yeah, we've got a lot of helpful things going on at mybusinessonpurpose.com. And if you just go there, and also if you go to mybusinessonpurpose.com/healthy, we actually have about a 5-minute healthy assessment that you can take. If you want to do a metric evaluation of the back-end systems health of your business for what we talked about around those systems and all the 4 Ps and all that kind of stuff, it'll actually give you a numerical value of the health of your business if you go there. So just go to mybusinessonpurpose.com/healthy.
That's so great. It's on the screen. It's down in the show notes below, wherever you're watching or listening. Scott, this was fantastic. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. Man, thanks for putting this together. It's a lot of work to put on a podcast, Brandon. I'm really grateful you would allow me to be on.
It's a labor of love because we're helping the people grow their businesses. And not only do we put out 1, we put out 5 a week. So you, the listener, you better subscribe because we want to help you build a more harmonious business and life. Build your business on purpose. Go visit the show notes down below. Check out Scott. Maybe he can help you grow your business. It's not a maybe. He definitely can, as long as you're willing to opt in and do the work. We'll see you on tomorrow's episode of Harmonious